Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the channel. For those of you who are veterans, welcome to the Gamey Plays channel. The new name of the channel has changed from Video Game Fight School. And for those of you who are new, well, I guess you meet it as Gamey Plays. Now, for those of us who are Batman fans, who are waiting this so-called Batman game because there's been so many rumors, leaks all over the place. Some people have been following these rumors for years now. I've been following the rumors going on 2 years, since about 2018. And we have not seen a single confirmable hint that we can say is. Now, yes, we have seen teases that alludes to something, but we haven't seen anything more than that. And if all we have are teases, it kind of gives us a little bit of anticipation, but not seeing anything more is also a little concerning. But this is how Warner Brothers has to play their game. They usually announce their games within a 6-month window of release, or maybe even less. And with everything that has gone on in the world right now, it's not hard to imagine that this has probably pushed back some of their announcements. Or with the cancellation of E3, it's not also hard to imagine that this has also pushed back a little bit of their scheduling based on reports that we've gotten from Jason Schreier and Kotaku and some other industry insiders. Now, this is basically not one of those videos where I'll be discussing leaks and analysis, but I'm looking at this from a marketing perspective, sales perspective, and how this might affect the overall commercial side of this Batman game. Because with everything going on right now, you know, if you look at the holidays seem like they're going to be really packed, and a lot of games are going to be vying for player dollars. This means that Batman, or this so-called new Batman game, is going to be in this pool of games that will be looking to get people's attention and people's dollars. And I fear that if this game is going to have to go neck and neck with all these other games, then we might see Warner Brothers actually start to back away slightly from the superhero genre, because it seems that a lot of video games are starting to, make and appeal to their audiences and hone down and do very well. So let's take into consideration a Call of Duty game. We got a Call of Duty game early this year, and because of the way Call of Duty is, it always is a massive seller. And I guarantee you that Batman wants to actually, make as much earnings as it can. But I think there's all this talk about this Batman game probably going to be an RPG game. And this kind of, competition is probably going to shift the framework and the frame of mind of this so-called new Batman game, especially with talks that Warner Brothers is actually trying to build a whole DC universe that will link up these games somehow. And I almost want to say, it's a little scary, but it's very hard to not see some kind of an MMO style game coming out somewhere or someplace. And as outlandish as it may sound, I don't think this is out of the question. Now, it may not happen, and I hope it doesn't happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ready for an MMO game. I'm not saying an MMO Batman game or DC game will not be good. I'm just saying I don't feel ready for one yet. I love the way the story-driven narratives do play out in the Arkham games, and a lot of the other DC titles usually are Lego games, or we have Injustice for fighting. And I think right now that's a good place to be. But if there has to be evolution of this franchise and the series and the entirety of the universe, then it might have to dabble into that place to be able to compete. But still, though, you have Marvel's Avengers that's actually trying to fill that niche and is taking a huge risk, because fans and players do not necessarily know if they want a Marvel version of DC Universe Online, if you understand what I mean. Now, yes, the Marvel game is going to be better. I'm not saying it's going to be DC Universe Online. You'll be playing as the heroes based on what we've seen, but it doesn't seem like fans are ready for anything like that yet. And then you look at the third part of the Nexus, which is a Spider-Man game, the Spider-Man 2 game that's been leaked, rumored, that's actually slated for the PS5. And you have to say, well, where is this Batman game going to compete, and who is it going to compete against, and what is Warner Brothers' plan? And to me, I think, based on what we've heard, this Batman game is probably going to be along the same competition lines as a Spider-Man 2 game. A Spider-Man 2 game will be a stiff competition against a Batman game because Spider-Man is way, way loved by a lot of other people. But still, a lot of those Spider-Man fans are not going to say no to a Batman game. Even though they like Spider-Man more, they're still going to be happy to engage in a Batman game just to see or check it out. And just like a lot of Batman fans were open and willing to check out a Spider-Man game, I think that both communities can also survive and live with multiple games of those two superheroes. But nonetheless, some people may be satisfied and just choose one, and it seems like the high likelihood will be that Spider-Man will be chosen. So what does this mean for Warner Brothers? It seems like Warner Brothers is probably waiting to see what Sony's move is going to be and see how fans are going to respond, because not only is this Spider-Man game slated for the PS5, it might be an exclusive to the PS5. And that might be where Warner Brothers has the, a little bit of wiggle room, because if they allow for this current generation to actually get that new Batman game that is rumored, that is somewhere that we don't know, then I think they can feel more comfortable to be able to work in that playing field and maybe even come out successful. These are some of the things that I consider when I'm looking at the overall story, the overall possibilities, because I can almost say that, Warner Brothers has to consider these different aspects if they're going to release a successful game, or if they're going to continue releasing these games. I mean, they've been really stingy with even putting down or cutting the check for a Superman game. And I've mentioned this in a past video that this is probably due to the fact that they don't necessarily see Superman as a money bringer, and they don't want to change the formula that they're already, profiting from. The Arkham games worldwide and total sales are probably, maxed out, copies that we'll probably not believe have been sold. I've bought that game just by myself multiple times on multiple different platforms and in different versions. So you think about all of that put together, then there's just no way that those games haven't sold more than enough. And it makes complete sense from a business perspective to make another Batman game. But this Batman game hopefully has to do well to maybe, kind of grease, the elbows of the developers to maybe, push for more, response from Warner Brothers to let them go ham on a Superman game or really nice game idea that's not just Batman. As a Batman fan, I'm not saying I don't want a Batman game. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it'll be nice to see other DC heroes that have a lot of potential. I mean, look at heroes like what's her name, Wonder Woman. She will have a wonderful story-based game that will definitely fit the hero. A lot of different storylines that can even intersect with the Batman and Superman thing, or they can just have her do her own game and it would appeal to a huge amount of fans. Look at Green Arrow. He is a very loved character, friends with Batman and the Justice League, and I think he will definitely also make a good hero. If they decide to make a story around him, he will do very well because the character himself is very dynamic. It even opens the door to bring in a character like the Black Canary into the picture and other villains that you don't necessarily see outside of Injustice, like Gorilla Grodd. I mean, these are characters that are, direct opponents and direct adversaries of a character like, Mr. Oliver Quinn, and look at Cheetah, a potential adversary of even the Wonder Woman. So I think there are so many possibilities and so many potential points, but it will be contingent on how this Batman game does. And even at Warner Brothers' other IPs that are coming out, even though I don't have too much of an interest in them, I just think there's so much to consider, because it just feels like they've prioritized some other IPs that I just don't feel like are necessary. But you never know. I remember there were talks about how the Middle-earth game was actually proposed at first as people was playing as an elf. They wanted the protagonist to be an elf, but one of the execs says people are not going to want to play as an elf. And so they made a ranger, a very bland character, to be a vehicle for Celebrimbor in the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War series. And that turned out to be just slightly okay, but I think Celebrimbor, a story about him, would have definitely sold. The Ranger felt really bland from the perspective of, a human character, but it is what it is. It was a solid entry in the gaming world, RPG, run around, slash, Assassin's Creed style game. We appreciated it for what it was, but I think that's basically all that it is. So that's basically it for me. Thank you so much for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys so much. If you have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button and join the Gaming Plays community. We'll be talking a lot about Batman. We'll be looking at different industry aspects around DC games. And hopefully you guys get to enjoy the content. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments section. Peace out.